started my gallery back in 1986, we were selecting artists to represent, and it wasn't really about what the commercial aspect. We were looking at artists that had potential and potential to grow within themselves, that had personality, that I personally liked, because when you're working with people, you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. You want to learn from them, and they need to learn from you. And it gave me a different perspective of what I want to see in an art and what I want to live with forever. So the simple answer of when I buy art now, and I buy it a bit, it's sort of on and off depending if I have some spare cash or not. It's not been consistent, my collecting all through. It's been more, I like now buying the work of artists who need my support, because you play a bit of a role in the creative process when you buy a piece of art. And looking back, I get real satisfaction out of buying artists' work when they're very early on in their career. Good work brings you joy. It's very hard to put your finger on. It makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up a bit if you see a work of art that you just know has that little something. But I can't put that into words. Well, in 2002, I bought along with my partner, friend, Hal James, we bought an old crumbling riad. It was completely falling down, and we really just bought it to have a little holiday house for ourselves. And then it became a love project. We just started putting so much into it. Marrakesh is a wonderful city. And the Moroccan people were endlessly good to us and very supportive and very welcoming. And so in 2004, when I was listening to George Bush talk about you're either with us or against us, and this very black and white view of the North Africa and the Muslim world, I was just so upset and so angry because my experience had been so positive. So I thought I'd start an arts festival that, I know that the role that the arts can play in providing a safe space in which to discuss difficult ideas. And so I thought I'd just have a small festival that we could discuss ideas, contentious ideas, without causing any offence to anybody. And so that's how it started, just as a small literary events, small visual arts events, and getting people from all over to discuss ideas, really, through the arts. I think everybody in the world was rather nonplussed by it, and I just wanted to make sense of where we came from, and I felt very strongly that the world had been getting a better place on a steady basis, and progressive thought was celebrated, and then suddenly the brakes were put on, and I wanted to investigate that. And so we were always brought up to believe that we had a voice and that we should make our voice heard if we thought something wasn't quite right that was happening. The issues of race haven't really touched me personally. We were brought up to be colourblind, and also on people's sexuality, and we were brought up not to believe in the other. So I've been slightly naive, I think. Really quite naive in thinking that, again, everything's getting better and it's all going to get acceptance and all this sort of thing. I became acutely aware of race issue when Obama was made president, because I felt so happy and thinking, at last this should just be put behind us now, the sort of race issue thing. And then, of course, there was the refugee crisis and the migrant crisis going on, and this awful thing that's happened England with the Brexit thing, and so it keeps rearing its ugly head. But I've been fortunate on a personal level that it hasn't really impacted my own life, to be honest. And I've just found out that I've got an Asian Indian great-grandmother, and it was such a great moment to realise I had a little bit of something interesting in me. The race questions that, obviously I want to fight injustice, and but the race question isn't my burning injustice to fight. It just goes in hand with all of the things I've just said. Well, probably the pieces that I bought early on. So in my collection, and I've got a really nice collection because I know most of the artists personally, and I see the works that I've bought as souvenirs. I'd like to buy a piece while I'm out here, because I'll remember this trip to Lagos forever from that work of art. So they're like the works of art that I have of souvenirs from my life. They're just little glimpses of moments of my past, and I love it when I walk through my house. It's just a walking memory repository. So I think the earlier pieces, I can't really pick out individual names. They all represent different. The later Moroccan artists that I've bought remind me of the Biennale, the early ones of the gallery, different projects that I've done. So not straightforward. Probably William Kentridge, little etching that I got from him, which I really understood contemporary art from. And she was a friend of mine, and she took my portraits and she helped me enormously in the Marrakesh Biennial. And her approach to her photography was far from commercial. She was completely focused on capturing the essence and capturing the truth in her the people who were sitting for her. And she's a good example of a real artist. Actually, she was, really great. I think it's always a mistake to think of buying art as an investment. I really genuinely do. I mean, I think it's you have to think of yourself as a patron. I think it satisfies all those things I've just mentioned. To be honest, it's a what I found exciting about, I've felt very effective when I've been in Morocco, because there was no arts infrastructure, and I could make a difference being there, and that's deeply rewarding. So putting that aside, the food's great, the people are really kind, it's a very safe place. There's a willing workforce there to people building. There's a service mentality. What's not to like? There's a wonderful climate. There's different regions, and there's an eagerness and a curiosity amongst the people, and I love it. It's a brilliant place. It's complicated. I think that artists, you don't have to like the artist. Because artists are difficult, as I've just said. I mean, on the whole, if you are an artist and you're a good artist, I think you have a layer of skin missing, because you are responding to things around you. I mean, what makes a work of art is it makes you look at the world an artist is ahead of you. They're looking at the world in a different way, and when you first look at their work, it might not mean very much, and then you can talk to them, and but they're artists. Good artists are special and have a particular way of thinking, and they're not necessarily going to be your best friends, because they're going to be very sensitive and need to be supported. They need their, not just their ego in a negative way, but they need their practice to be supported, and they like to talk about themselves all the time, and that's fair enough, because they make the world a much more interesting place. I'm generalizing enormously, but on the whole there's that sort of thing. If you have somebody who is leaving a trail of misery behind them and supporting violence in their work, or the case of Michael Jackson or somebody, it's a very complicated thing, because, as I said, by buying their work, you're endorsing them, you're playing a part in their creative process. And I think that, I personally, but I don't want to preach to anybody what they should do, but I personally don't want to support somebody who has values that don't align with mine. They're not separate spheres. The arts are all interconnected, and you can just see that in filmmaking. A really great film has wonderful music, often references stories from great literature, and often references artist work. So I think that I've just written my memoirs, and I realise that everything's interconnected, and so I think all art forms feed off each other and reference each other. Well, I've been doing it for 10 years, and it's hard work, to be honest. No sooner as you finish one, you need to get working on the next one. And it was a strictly not-for-profit event. So we were raising sponsorship, and there was a sort of perception that I was underwriting the cost of it, and that was very stressful, to be honest. But I also think that it's time for the next generation to step up. I'm in my last year of my 50s now, and it's time for late 20s to step up. We need your generation. You're super, and I'm there's so many capable younger people who should be driving it forward with some energy, and I'm hopeful that's going to happen. I believe that life is about contrast. So I think a bit of working in a city like Lagos, you can just feel the energy and you can feed off each other, and artists, it's really good to be in a hub, and artists can interact and criticize each other's work and support each other and turn up and party, and so I think that's very important. And then I think the contrast of being away for a month, getting away from all of that, walking, getting in touch with nature, plays its role as well. I don't know how long you should go back. If you start trying to unpick history, you're going to get in a real muddle, because all of the countries have been changing power structures, and one moment I'll talk to somebody and I'll think the Elgin marbles is the big one. We in Victorian times took beautiful artifacts from all over the place, and we took these beautiful friezes, amazing ancient friezes from Greece, and so the conversation around these marbles, and it swings. You feel very strongly. I hear somebody saying that they should go back, and then another person saying, well, if they had been back, they wouldn't have been preserved. Millions of people around the world see them in the British Museum right now, and if everything in the British Museum was taken back, to some countries that aren't so stable, whether they'd be preserved enough. At the moment, they're open for everybody to see. It's free to get into the museum. So it's not that straightforward a conversation, and I need to learn more about it, really. But it's not one. I don't think one rule can fit everybody. I don't think everything can just quickly go back to places where no museums are, for example.